You've got to sort of separate the output of the work to doing the work. It's not glamorous, Visual effects is not glamorous.
Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Pierre Sondergaard. I'm a texture artist in visual effects. Welcome to my podcast. Let's be honest, a life and a career as a working artist can be very fulfilling, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's filled with challenges and obstacles, and the path forward is not always clear or simple. On this podcast, we discuss all of this openly and honestly with experienced artists who have already walked that road. That's why I call it the naked texture artist. There are many podcasts that focus on and celebrate all the big achievements in visual effects and animation. But my career as a texture artist has not been one unending victory lap. So personally, I'm more interested in learning how my fellow artists handle the hard things, when things don't work, when things break, or when we're expected to produce the impossible. All of that stuff that takes place behind the curtain. So I invite you to join me on this journey. Hopefully together we can learn from the artists who went before us, save ourselves some scars and some tears, and increase our joy as working artists. Welcome to the Naked Texture Artist. If it is not immediately clear, let me pull back the curtain a bit. Besides thinking about how to break up my specular highlights or avoid visible tiling, I spend a lot of time thinking about our role in the industry, as well as the role our industry plays in the world at large. All of it. I don't know. I'm just plagued by questions about how everything works. You should see my bookshelves. It's a complicated life, wanting to know everything. This also means that I'm always on the lookout for people with interesting perspectives on our industry. Remember VFX Soldier? I do. But I think artists are mostly inherently introverted, so it's not too often somebody sticks their head up above the parapet and ventures a tangential take. I have a couple of people I follow in this space. People like Joseph Bell, who publishes the VFX Atlas, and in general has thoughtful and well-researched takes on industry news. Then there is Alan Lasky, very bullish on all things AI. So much so you'd think he's part of the semiconductor industry. Of course, Scott Ross has incredible insights and experience, having first run ILM and then later launched Digital Domain. He has a book out now, so he's on the interview circuit right now. I suppose everybody has an agenda, even I, and so you'll have to filter their insights to compensate for that personal lot. Scott Galloway speaks very rarely on this, but when he does, you better listen. His blog post on Peak Hollywood goes a long way to answer all the questions of artists who are seeing the world burn down around them for the past 2 years. These are just a few of the people whose opinions make my ears prick up. And then I came across an incredibly well thought out and well written series of posts by an Australian compositor. Do you know when you're really enthralled reading something, you're so disappointed when you get to the end and realize there is no more? I'm talking about What is My Value as a VFX Artist by Daniel Harkness. 8 very insightful and thought-provoking articles on LinkedIn. This is not an exaggeration. Every single artist in our industry should read these. Do yourself that favor. It will be like adding armor or padding to your career. Okay, so this is the Naked Texture Artist. Daniel is a compositor and motion designer, so he falls outside of my normal target group. But the stuff he writes about? Definitely in the naked category. So I had to reach out to him and see if we could learn a bit more about him and learn from how he sees the world, which he graciously agreed to. So I'm very happy to add Daniel to the collective of voices here on The Naked Texture Artist. Here's the first slice from my conversation with Daniel Harkness.
How do I pronounce your name? Is it Mark?
Yeah, just Mark. Just Mark.
Okay, just a different spelling.
Yeah, my mom lived in Paris when she was young, and so she's concocted all kinds of French names for me and all my siblings. So a lot of confusion ever since. What about you, Daniel Harkness? Where are you from?
I'm from Australia, but
Yeah.
Harkness, I guess, is it sounds Scottish, but it's English.
Really?
Bit of both. Yeah.
As a Scandinavian, when I hear Harkness, like
Yeah.
names ending on ness, it's a word that's common in Scandinavia. So all the three Scandinavian languages. And I would think Norwegian or Swedish.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
But then again, we did have some comings and goings on the British Isles, so it might have rubbed off.
Yeah. I always thought because Loch Ness, like that was my association with.
Sure.
And I think from our history, we've got our own like kilts. So we have a strong Scottish background. Yeah.
Oh, I'd take that, man. I wish I had some kind of tribal insignia like a kilt or a tartan or anything. That's strong stuff.
So are your mother's French, but where are you from?
No, I'm from Denmark, and my parents are from Denmark too. She just lived in France when she was young, as you do. And yeah, but Danish, pretty, just good old-fashioned Danish, except for my
Danish
weird
through
name.
and through.
Yeah, that's right. I've been living out of Denmark since, I want to say, 2002. Well, with some pieces before then, but then uninterrupted since then. So it's been a while since I've lived back in Denmark. But you know how visual effects work is. We have to move where the business is.
I was curious because I listened to one of your podcasts before. I listened to a few before coming on, and
Sure.
I'd never know that Digital Domain had a London office at one stage. So,
when the king has a whatever bastard son with a village maid, and in the moment there, it looked like they were maybe going to get married, and that was going to be a legitimate son. But if that doesn't play out, then it's just like hush hush. We don't talk about that. So
right, it was they were launching it, but hadn't officially launched it.
So there, at the time when I joined them as a runner, it was basically a joint venture between DD was going to bring in the work, the shows, and then a lot of the finance backing to get us off the ground was done by an Indian company called Reliance Media Works. They run cinema chains, they do all kinds of other things in the film industry, and I think they have an insurance arm as well. This massive conglomerate. And that was the idea. So what was the branding going to be? Were we going to be DD London? Because DD was interested in tapping into the London staff scene. I guess people moving back and forth across the Atlantic and other continents. It wasn't so normal in those days. But we did. I want to say we did at least 2 shows for DD, maybe more. And then there were some hiccups. This was about the time when DD had an office down in Florida as well. That was a school / a studio. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, people would,
There were a lot of funny things happening there. And all of a sudden, maybe times weren't so good for DD and you sort of cut everything that can be cut and get the hell out of there, So all of a sudden we were then Reliance Media Works because the Indian side of things, they were still attached. And we did another couple of shows with them. But I have to say, if you're counting on when Americans are telling you, yeah, we love you, let's do lunch, that means yes. And if you're counting on getting money out of Indian money men, you really are setting yourself up for the hardest situation possible. Where you're going to be waiting a long time for that work, and you're going to be waiting a long time for those checks to arrive in the mail. So eventually it died a death. How long was it going for? Probably a little over a year. Maybe, yeah. a good bit over a year, I would say. And then I think the last thing the studio did was, I want to say Black Sails, a TV show, pirate TV show. So yeah, that was DD London. I hear DD is still occasionally thinking about opening that London studio in earnest.
Yeah. I mean, I before, when I was I took a trip to LA and Vancouver. I think it was 2 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, and met up with some people, and they were like, I met up with the president at the time, and he was, this was just after they'd opened Montreal, and they were gung ho on Montreal. I think there's always wanted to open up in Australia, but when you talk to certain people, there was times where they were just going to open up. They almost opened up in Sydney, but at the time he was like, I want to open up in London. That's the next thing that DD should be doing. But he's no longer there. He's no longer the president, so I'm not sure. Maybe that was his personal view. So
yeah, these things certainly can change depending on who's the executive team at the time, but also depending on what are the times in the world and what's happening there. So, for the longest time, Montreal with the biggest tax credits in the world, that looked like a fantastic idea. Now, as they're being reduced, maybe not so much. I don't want to show my hand here, but I do have friends at DD, and I understand that they're still thinking about opening a studio someplace. They have looked at Australia, but what I heard, which is, again, take that for what it's worth, I think the thinking is that they sort of feel that all the talent in Australia is already committed. So it's not a place where you can find vast untapped talent that's just ready to employ.
Very expensive to import everyone. Yeah.
And I want to say, just as a foreigner as well, having looked at Australia, of course, the immigration system is very difficult. If you're over 35 years old, I think, then it's basically a dead end, as in very hard to have a long-term future in Australia as a migrant worker. So that makes it more difficult as well. But I think they're looking at Europe right now. It could be London. It could be another location in Europe. And we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think, like as you said before, with the Florida incident and having gone bankrupt twice, they're very cautious about opening up new studios.
Yeah. Oh man, DD. This is. I think. I don't know. Are you sentimental about these things? When I read your fantastic series of posts there, what is my value as a visual effects artist? I see a very, clear-eyed, unsentimental, cold light of day look at what we are, the nuts and bolts, and where we fit into all of that. But are you, as an artist, are you sentimental about the studios you want to work for? Let's say the big OG like ILM, oh my goodness, this is where it all started, or DD, also some absolute fantastic, sort of 10 poles of visual effects history, to be a part of that legacy, even that's decades long gone, or you just like show me the day rate and that's all I care about.
I guess I'm more sentimental about my experiences that I've had there. Not about, I guess once you've worked in, the big studios, that the reality is that it's like anything. I mean, when I was a kid, I had my dad bought me a ILM book. It was like a coffee table book, and so the book would, it's a marketing exercise. So it's all made to be amazing. If you watch a documentary, the studio's amazing, but it's visual effects is a job, and so it's a cool job, and you get to make cool things. A lot of the time.
On occasion.
Yeah, you can make it cool even if it's not cool. But there's so many really hard things about doing the work. So I'm not sure where I was getting with that, but I don't think you can be sentimental in the fact that you've got to sort of separate the output of the work to doing the work. It's not glamorous, Visual effects is not glamorous.
That's what all of my friends can't understand. They're like, "Oh, the film industry." Somehow they think I'm on a red carpet with James Cameron or
exactly. And when you start to explain what you do, and they're like, oh, like if you tell people how hard you work and the day-to-day nuts and bolts of it, I think most people would. I've talked about it with people, and they're like, there's no way I could do that. It would crush me. It's too hard.
I tell people to look at your whatever Marvel blockbuster is out at the moment and just count the names. Count the names as you're sitting there for like half an hour, it seems, running through the credits. Just count the names, Yeah. And I'm one of these grains of sand on that beach, That's the reality of it, really. So I was going to ask you as the opening question here, because I was so taken by your writing. You really have a gift for writing, both your reasonings, the fact that you managed to convey, and also just how enjoyable it is to read.
Thank you.
I'm so excited when I find another post or some little tidbit you've written, and I mean I like I said, my first introduction to it was that series you wrote, "What is my value as a visual effects artist," and then you've written other bits and pieces and so on. Why? Why do you write?
That's a good question.
Is it personal, as in it helps me work through a lot of stuff? Or is it more like I want to change the world and this needs to be out there so people can...
I don't think I've thought of why I write. There's probably a personal reason why I write. I think that was to prove something, but it's totally unrelated to visual effects. So... But maybe we can get to this question at the end.
Let me look at it from a different angle. If you're sort of like imagining your average Joe visual effects worker, whether they're working in shots or assets or whatever they're doing, would you agree that most of them just kind of keep their heads ducked down behind the monitor and don't stand out and don't voice opinions and don't speak too much and think too much and such?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. And I guess especially as you get older and more experienced, and you've seen more, then you get these viewpoints. When you're just going into the industry and you're just starting out, or if you're not in any sort of leadership role or talking to clients and things like that, you don't see as much. And so the only thing you can do is sit behind the monitor and focus on your shots, because that's your viewpoint, and your bigger viewpoint maybe is seeing everyone else's work in dailies. Most artists are just they're protected in a regard to protected from the bigger things that are going on, and even me, I'm protected from even a larger thing. In my writing, I'm exploring these things, but I have no idea what happens in meetings beyond talking to a client-side supervisor. So, yeah.
I'm thinking maybe a lot of artists also, you say they're protected, as in, a lot of this stuff is above their pay grade, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But maybe they're also trying to protect themselves, as in, we were talking about that the world of the visual effects artist is not glamorous in the slightest. It is a world where everybody focuses on your shortcomings. Dailies are all about pointing out flaws. This is how we achieve photorealism, by keep polishing off one little error, one little mistake, until there finally is nothing left, and now you have the final product. So by and large, I would say like the bias of the job is very much focused on what is not working, rather than awesome, you did a great job here, this looks amazing, that part. That stuff, if is rarely mentioned. So if you have, what I'm trying to paint is the picture of a day-to-day life of a lot of artists that might be a little scary, where you sort of, all you hear about is the stuff that goes wrong. So you kind of keep your head down because you're thinking you're behind in the match, in the whatever football match. You don't want to rock the boat because you're already behind the curve here. As things are, which is probably a lot to do with just perception rather than reality.
I think you're right there. That's perception rather than reality because, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, most of the projects I've worked on, I don't think that people, I mean, they shouldn't be thinking like that. They shouldn't be about protecting themselves. I mean, and I don't, Dailies is, I guess, people need a thick skin to not take things personally. We're calling things out to try and make it better. In most instances, it's easier to call out and pick things wrong, but that's not really the goal. Is to pick things. You're observing things to try and hopefully to push the work forward, right? Not to criticize. It's constructive criticism. It's not.
Hey, absolutely. It serves a purpose. It does drive the work forward, but I'm just thinking from the viewpoint of the individual artist, what does that process feel like? Do you go to work, chest out, you're like, yeah, this is going to be a great day, or do you leave thinking about all the things that went wrong? In psychology, you sort of have this concept that it takes 5 positive impressions to negate 1 negative impression. So I tell you one time you're stupid, I'm going to tell you 5 times that you're clever to just get back to ground zero,
Yeah.
So you try and, add that sort of a psychological principle to the daily life or visual effects. There's some ground to make up there.
Right. I guess, yeah. I remember my first show was I was excited to be working on it. So I think there's other things that can make up for and just going to Dailies for the first time and learning all the new terms and there's almost like this thing, other things happening in your head that could just totally blind you to the fact that we're criticizing this thing. So,
what was your first show?
Furiosa. Oh, well, actually, no. Technically, my first show was, what was the Batman one with the Two-Face? So I'd gone to London. I was in London in 2007 and did some roto paint work. So technically, that's my first show, roto paint.
I can't believe you got to work on Mad Max Fury Road. I'm an asset artist, and as these ones come, oftentimes you end up spending a lot of times with hard surface work, which some people resent, and they're like, please, I want to get near the characters, the creatures, that kind of stuff, the organic stuff. Other people are really drilling down on that, and like they're going to be hard surface experts. And I suppose I'm one of the latter ones. And oh my goodness, Mad Max Fury Road is just a hard surface asset artist dream. I can't believe how cool it is. Maybe from a compositing point of view, not so cool. I don't know how it played out.
It was cool. It was fun. It was really good to work on. Yeah.
And you did the sequel, Furiosa, as well.
I wasn't really. I was 911, so it's not the same as a long stint on the Furiosa, where it's there's more team building and it's a different game.
Yeah, that's that. I don't know if you have that. I'm sure you must have shows where you're looking at and thinking work and think, oh my goodness, I would have killed to have worked on that. What's on your hit list?
On my hit list, Blade Runner, maybe.
What, the original one?
No, the latest, the new one with the Ryan Gosling. Yeah, it's interesting because I do visual effects. But weirdly, I enjoy films more that are less visual effects heavy. So, if I was to work on something that I would really want to work on, it probably wouldn't be visual effects. It'll have that aspect of it, but I would love to be involved in the production side of things, in the pre-production and planning and seeing all that sort of stuff that we don't get to. In the vendor side of things, we just get the shots and we just work on it. And there's so many things I'd want to do.
Yeah,
there's no one thing. I'm just like.
You worked on both Thor Ragnarok, the third Thor film, and then also Thor 4, Love and Thunder.
Yes.
How do you compare those two experiences?
So Ragnarok, that was basically coming back to the old Furiosa team. So you just sort of walk, you're in the studio and you know everyone and you just get down to work. And, that was, it's a good experience because actually I really like that because I was in Vancouver and we'd just finished a show, and then had the opportunity to fly back to Australia, put up in a hotel, just do a couple of months on the show, and then the other side of that, the Love and Thunder one is a 911 gig. It's like our show's in a mess. Hey, can you get on and smash shots out? So, and that was work from home as well. So it's totally, from the experience time wise, I much prefer Love and Thunder simply because of the not Love and Thunder. Sorry, far prefer Ragnarok because I'm there with teammates in the studio, checking shots out in the theatre, and then as years down the track, as I'm more experienced, I'm just sitting in my office, smashing shots out. So it's
joylessly cranking out shots.
Yeah. Not joylessly. I mean, I find joy and sort of pride in everything I'm trying to do, but it's experience-wise, I'll take the former over the latter. Yeah.
Just as a fan of this genre, I absolutely loved the Thor 3, Ragnarok. I thought that was, of all the different sort of branches of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I thought Thor was the most stale and uninteresting one. And then comes Taika Waititi and just absolutely cracks the mold and makes, in my opinion, the best film so far of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I loved everything about it. I was laughing out loud. I was loving all the work, everything, to the point where a bit later, I have two studios competing for my services during the mad streaming wars where everybody could just double their salaries month on month, it seemed. And I was picking between Dune and Thor 4, Love and Thunder. And because I was so impressed with Thor 3, just like a really, really cool film that you'd like to say, hey, I worked on that, compared to a lot of stuff we make that nobody cares about. So I went that direction. My goodness, famous last words. That was a bad, bad, bad choice. I honestly did it to impress my daughters because I knew they didn't give a dot about Dune, the Dune universe that I knew and loved, but they were all about their Marvel stuff. What a dud to have worked on. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I should cut this out. Anyway.
Do you tie yourself to the shows that you worked on, or it's...
This is my problem. I'm 12 years in, and in order for me to produce good work and not be the salty senior, I do need to be emotionally invested in what I'm doing. Because what is asked of us is so much bigger than what is asked from a regular, office worker. So we need to find a power reservoir someplace else outside of what you just, in a normal 9-to-5 job, you bring to the table, right? And so if you don't have that emotional attachment, it's going to be hard. It's are you going to work OT if you don't? Are you going to work weekends? Are you going to, that 5-to-1 criticism ratio we were talking about there, are you going to persevere through all of that if you don't absolutely love what you're doing, or at least most of the time, or can tell yourself that it is cool somehow? I don't think so. I think people just down tools and say, okay, that's it, I'm done here. Which,
that's interesting because I think in you posed some questions here that I was going through before, and because you find the drive in what you're working on and in your product, and for me, I think I'm finding the drive in the process of creating the product and how we get from A to B. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter so much what we're working on. It's how we get there. So
okay, I think as we were fundamentally different, I'm an asset artist and you're a shot artist, so to speak. How many shots would you, on a given show, how many shots would you do?
It depends. And this is...
Yeah, it's not a fair question. What I'm trying to say is that, let's say, the number of assets for me to work on a regular show is X amount. I'm going to venture the guess that for a shot artist, you guys do 10x the number of shots that I do assets,
Yes.
or probably even more so. So let's say if I get really complicated assets, maybe over the course of a 6-month span, I only just do like, let's say, one major asset, one hero asset, and then a couple of small ones on the side while I'm waiting on feedback from the client on the hero asset. It may be like that over a 6-month period. So I don't get to do so many runs of the process as you guys do. If you're running that process 100 times over a 6-month period rather than 3 times, that gives you a chance to really drill down on that process and see it really see it stretching its legs. Do you get what I'm driving at?
I get where you're just sitting at looking at the same thing for 6 months. Whereas we're looking at, 20 shots, 40 shots. Yeah, I get that.
But that said, you also, I think as a professional, you find a way to motivate yourself, even if there isn't one in the subject matter. As in, then you tell yourself, hey, you know what? Isn't it cool that I'm doing everything procedurally without any paint work, or I'm pushing myself in this technical direction or that technical direction, even if you don't care about the subject matter. You have to conjure and create that motivation somehow, or else you run dry. So you have spent a fair bit of time with dailies and thinking about how to make dailies more useful for everyone.
Yes. Because you probably read the article that I wrote on dailies.
Exactly. What's the big culprit in dailies? If you could just sort of strike one thing away, and we've already, the 80-20 rule where you're achieving 80% of the results with 20% of the effort. The lead domino that makes a few other ones fall.
I don't know, because if every shows and every supervisor, I think, runs a show their own way, they're same but different. But if there was anything you could do to minimize, let me think on this just for a sec.
Sure.
Because if the question is to optimize dailies, the issue is if you're going to go too quickly in dailies, you're going to miss things, and then there's value in sitting there and discussing things. And this is, I guess, what people are finding so great about the work from home and having dailies in a Zoom call or whatever, Google Meets, or is that people can keep working and listen in, and the whole team can see the show, and there's so many advantages to that. But at the same time, it's all virtual. I personally believe that we've lost something in that, you usually block out an hour in the theatre, and, there might be another show running. They need that theatre afterwards. And the constraints and the planning, it's almost like it's forced, having that theatre time forced some better planning. I haven't written about this, but it's always been in my head about over this pandemic thing, and as we change from work from home, a lot of the workflows, whilst we still work the same way we previously worked, it's a little bit different. We're online, and like I said, we've changed these things in the way we do dailies. Things that we've gained, we've also lost in the process. So how we fix that, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's making sure we're all, if we have the opportunity to do real dailies like 3 times a week, or go twice a week or something, because it can be so, it can be a little bit disruptive. I'm trying to think through this. Every show is going to be different as well. Maybe some shows need dailies 5 days a week. Maybe some shows need dailies twice a week or 3 times a week, and let people have a whole day to focus. It's like Fridays is no notes day. There's so many different ways you could approach it.
I think if I, as an artist, if I have enough time, which is never, I love sitting in dailies, just with a notepad and nothing in my head, just listening to the conversation and taking notes, because that is an education in film work, in creating images. And those are important thoughts. The whole thing of the thinking behind why are we doing what we're doing, what makes this image stronger or weaker. Those are thoughts all artists really should be thinking all their career through, in order to keep, software may come and go, but honing and polishing that skill of seeing and analyzing visually, that is really what you bring to the table as an artist. So that is just a beautiful thing to have, but you never ever have time for that. It's just, if anything, dailies for an asset artist is like, how quickly can I get out of that so I can get back to my deliverables? Yeah.
But maybe that's something that you think that, but you might not know. We might not know that the actual time of getting away from the desk and coming into the theatre and being hyper focused on what we're looking at, rather than being distracted with a voice in our head and our work, and then dailies on the side screen. We're not really looking at it. We're looking at it when we're asked to, and we're looking down at a tiny little screen that's it's not right there in front of us. And who knows? It could be like when you're doing things during the day and you go to sleep at night, and it percolates in your head, and then you're up again. Who knows if the same process of getting away from your desk and being focused on the screen with the team, talking about it, observing it, is actually more productive. Having 15 minutes away from your computer is ultimately more productive than being at your computer and not being hyper-focused. So we don't measure these things.
I think you're onto something there. I really think you are. It's that sort of thing. What is it they say in the U.S. Army? They say slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So you may be on that treadmill where you're just trying to run as quickly as you can, but you're not really getting anywhere with it. I get that. And we are totally in our industry, and many of us as individuals are caught up in that loop of just mindlessly pushing forward without saying, hey, stop. Is this actually, it looks productive, but is it actually effective what you're doing? I get that 100%. And also, I miss studio dailies so much versus virtual dailies over Zoom. Human beings next to each other, it just changes the communication completely. It changes the focus, as you were saying, and all of these things. On the other hand, you can claim, we can do 1 million daily sessions a day now with this super optimized digital technology. But we are absolutely losing more than we're gaining on that, I think. Stuff that cannot be quantified in a spreadsheet. But that's an aside. How about a common dailies, what should we say, issue that I've been thinking about over time? When you have a person in a committee, when you have a person of oversight present at a meeting, there is a crushing pressure for that person to voice an opinion in order to justify their presence and their paycheck and everything that comes with that. But every time in a daily session that somebody speaks up and says, I think this, you end up creating work. There's a downstream cascade from voicing your opinion there that may end up being extra work for no reason for the artist. How do we beat that?
I guess every facility is going to be different. So, the way most shows is VFX supervisors leading the charge, and they will have the final say on the. I guess it's up to them to make sure that work is.
So maybe I'm not explaining correctly, but let's say in an asset team, right?
Yeah.
So I come from the texture surfacing world, right? So that's under assets, and in a dailies meeting, there may be a lead, a texture lead, or surfacing lead, or supervisor. There may also be let's say if you're working on creatures, there may also be a creature supervisor. There may then be a CG soup that just sort of has overall, or an asset soup that sort of has overall control over the assets as such, and then maybe a visual effects supervisor as well. Each of these people are sort of sitting there in a gamesmanship situation, or where they have to, well, I don't know, how do I put that? They have a pressure of sort of making their voice heard. If not, why are they even here? How do they justify their paycheck? And for each of them, one says, I like blue. And then the production coordinator takes down the note, blue, make a blue version. And the other one says, blue, I don't know, red would work better. Fine. Okay, so now before you know it, you're making, now production coordinator at the end of the meeting will say to the asset artist, we need variants in blue, red, whatever, so on and so forth. And none of it has passed muster with, let's say, the one with the final say, like an asset supervisor or a visual effects supervisor. What I'm saying, with every comment that anybody in the rungs above the asset artist, with every comment that they're putting out there, just as it might just be a brain fart, or they are just exploring the subject by talking about it. All of this typically turns into work because the court can't discern what is important and what's not. They're just writing down everything scrupulously. And now I'm looking at a list of notes that is much, much longer, and I know most of them will go nowhere, because when I produce that and it comes to the one with the final say, that person's like, I didn't ask for red, I didn't ask for blue, whatever, what is this? Let me just see the other one here that we were talking about. How do we stop Dailies from being sort of like a sprawl of unnecessary work?
That's interesting. I'm not sure what shows you've been working on, but I guess a lot of the stuff you wouldn't even get, people will be saying these things in Dailies, but I think ultimately the decision's made there and then to not do 10 variants, or if we're requesting wedges to do the variants. But the coordinators, if you've got multiple coordinators, would get together, because everyone's taking notes in Shotgun, in the notes app, and then at the end of it they'll do notes review before they publish the notes.
Oh.
And so, well, if they've all talked about it and you want 10 different colour variants, then that's what you got to do. But you might have talked about it and you think you're about to do that. If you've got good coordinators and a good team that talk, a production team that get in the production office and talk about, collate everything, because that's the thing, there's so much gets talked about in that hour that your effects coordinator's taking down notes and they're focused on the effects things that someone said. Whilst they're taking down everything, they've got an effects focus, and then comp's got a comp focus. I guess I haven't, and this is the thing, is from the shots perspective, we will see at a big facility less and less on the CG side of things, and looking at assets and at the that's at the big side of things. Comp never goes into an asset dailies. They can now. Now they can. You can go into every dailies if you wanted to, which is, I guess, that's a positive thing about work from home, is we get to see other departments' dailies if we wanted to. And then at the mid-sized facilities, you compile every department into the one dailies. So, yeah, so I guess, and to answer your question, I'm like, what shows have you been? I'm curious as to what made you do all these assets you didn't have to do.
This has happened to me more than once. And you kind of learn that if this guy speaks, just ignore him, because his opinion holds no mustard, holds no clout with anybody. This person over there, if he speaks, even though seldomly, you better make that version, But, you sort of have to learn who to ignore. But that's a pointless exercise, I find. Like, it shouldn't be there in the first place. Mm-hmm. Artist time is precious, and we need all the time we can do for the work to do revisions and iterations and whatever. So any unnecessary blind alleys, I'd much rather have them weeded out as soon as possible, instead of wasting precious time on that. That's from the point of the artist carrying out the work, of course.
Yeah. I guess it was which stage you are in the processes, right, as well. Because as you get, you're at the start of the show, figuring assets out, it's different to the end of the show.
That's a good point. That's a lot of exploration at that stage. That's true. Do you do art on the side? Growing up, were you a traditional artist, or the kid that was drawing Spider-Man comics in his math books, or? Daniel Harkness will be back in a future episode. Thanks for spending a little bit of your day with us. We have a tiny bit of housekeeping to do on the way out. If this episode has been helpful to you, why not share the podcast with your colleagues and friends? If you'd like to support the podcast, I'd appreciate if you bought me a coffee. You can do that on Ko-fi. That is spelled ko-fi.com/The Naked Texture Artist. One word. If you have suggestions, comments, or questions, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to drop me a line on thenakedtextureartist@gmail.com. That is the Naked Texture Artist written out in all one word @gmail.com. As I mentioned, having a busy day job in visual effects means my release schedule for this podcast can be a bit irregular. So if you don't want to miss out, subscribe to the Naked Texture Artist wherever you get your podcasts. Or follow the podcast on the socials, then you'll be alerted when the next episode drops. The music in this episode was Awake by Tycho. Nick Sifoni helped put the sound together, and everything else was done by me, your host, Mark Pierre Sondergaard. Speak to you soon.